Well, that last principle will make your hair stand up, won't it? Judas had sold Jesus for the price of a slave, Exodus 21:32. And that money, he threw it on the temple floor. It was considered blood money. And the law wouldn't permit the use of this kind of tainted money for temple purposes. Deuteronomy 23:18. Now, the leaders were careful to observe the law, even while they were guilty of breaking the law. Putting blood money into the treasury was unlawful. But shedding that same blood was lawful in their eyes. Now, the Jews didn't have the authority to exercise capital punishment. John 18:31. So the prisoner went to Pilate, the Roman procurator. Only he could sentence a prisoner to death. The Jewish leaders accused Jesus of crimes that were definitely political charges, the kind that the Roman governor could handle. Now, Pilate focused on the third charge, that Jesus claimed to be a king, because this was a definite threat to Rome. If he could deal with this revolutionary properly, Pilate could please the Jews and impress the emperor at the same time. Now, Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus answered, "It is as you say." However, Jesus then asked Pilate a question about his question. It's in John 18:34-37. Was Pilate thinking of kingship in the Roman sense? Or if so, then Jesus was not that kind of king. So Jesus explained to the governor that his kingdom was not of this world, that he had no armies, and that his followers did not fight. Rather, his kingdom was a reign of truth. This conversation convinced Pilate that Jesus was not a dangerous revolutionary, but the Jewish rulers were insistent that Pilate condemn Jesus. They repeated their charges, and they enlarged upon them by mentioning that Jesus was from Galilee. The story goes on that it's possible that Herod was displeased with Pilate because he had slain some of his people, Luke 13:1. And this was the perfect opportunity for Pilate to be reconciled with Herod, because Galilee was under Herod's jurisdiction. Don't forget that. Galilee was under Herod's jurisdiction. Now, Matthew didn't record the trial held before Herod, but Herod was the one who had murdered John the Baptist and had threatened to kill Jesus, Luke 13. Jesus was silent before Herod because Herod had silenced the voice of God. All Herod could do was mock Jesus and send him back to Pilate. Now, as a Roman governor, Pilate was pledged to uphold the law. But as a politician, he knew he had to get along with the people. Every decision he made forced him to make another one, until he became the prisoner of his own evasions. Pilate had one more scheme. He would follow the tradition of releasing the prisoner, and instead of selecting an unknown prisoner, Pilate deliberately chose the most notorious prisoner he had, Barabbas, some people say. So this man was a robber, John 18:40, and a murderer, Mark 15:7. And one commentary called him a terrorist. Pilate reasoned that the crowd would reject him and ask for Jesus to be released. After all, who wants a convicted murderer and robber turned loose into society? But Pilate was wrong. In spite of the fact that Jesus healed the sick and even raised the dead, the people rejected him, and they chose Barabbas to be released. Barabbas. Pilate realized a riot was in the making, and he couldn't afford to let that happen. He was forced to act fast, purely out of expediency, not on the basis of integrity. He released the guilty man and condemned an innocent man. Oh my. This stuff sounds so familiar these days, doesn't it? And it's Holy Week. Now, Pilate took steps to exonerate himself. He washed his hands and declared that he was innocent of any guilt. He clearly stated that Jesus was just a person and not worthy of death. And he offered to punish Jesus and then release him. But the Jewish rulers wouldn't accept any compromise. The religious rulers used one weapon they had against Pilate, and he couldn't defend himself. They said, "If you release this man, you are no friend of Caesar's. Everyone who makes himself out to be a king opposes Caesar." John 19:12. Now Pilate gave in. He had Jesus scourged, and he delivered him to be crucified. And I just want to give you a visual of scourging. A scourge was a Roman implement that was used for severe bodily punishment. It consisted of a handle with about a dozen leather cords with jagged pieces of bone or metal at the end. And to make the blow even more painful and effective, because they would cut in each time they hit the person, the prisoner. The victim was tied to a post, and the blows were applied to the back, bare loins and the back, and sometimes the face and even the bowels. It was designed to get confessions, but what could they get from an innocent, sinless man? Acts 22:24-25. Hello, Elvis, I'm teaching. Flogging was permitted by law up to 40 times. The Jews reduced these stripes to 39. 2 Corinthians 11:23-25. If that scourge had 12 thongs and Jesus was hit 39 times, that's 468 stripes. Some struck in the same place each time, cutting deeper and deeper. And because of the hatred behind each blow, Jesus was marred more than any other man. Isaiah 52:14. He wasn't even recognizable. Now, Pilate knew what was right, but he refused to do anything about it. He was willing to please the people. Mark 15:15. Judas yielded to the devil in his great sin. John 13:2 and 27. And Peter yielded to the flesh when he denied his Lord. But Pilate yielded to the world and he listened to the crowd. Pilate looked for an easy way, not the right way. He went down in history as the man that condemned Jesus. Here's your principle. Don't look for the easy way. Look for the right way, the way of righteousness. Don't look for the easy way. Look for the right way, the way of righteousness. Don't look for the easy way. Look for the right way, the way of righteousness.